Matthew, you are the author of the book Pathways of Qi. And Pathways of Qi is actually coming out in Swedish with the title Vägen till Qi in a couple of weeks. And our audience, our readers, are eager to hear more about you as a person and listen in about what drove you, what inspired you to actually write this book, which I think is very fascinating, and it has a lot of content. You can use it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're reminding me of something that the Chinese say, that Americans or Westerners read 100 books once, but Chinese read one book 100 times.
Oh, I never heard that.
Uh-huh. And when I think of that with Chinese medicine books, particularly, I'll have one book, and I probably have about 15 books that are my main curriculum books, because I teach shiatsu, I teach Chinese medicine, and I read these books over and over and over because they're so dense, they're so full of content. And one of my intentions with Pathways was to create a book that you could read over and over and over, that it would be dense with information and content that could fill your mind and heart with ideas and inspiration that could go quite deep into the human experience.
And it does. It lasts 100 years, I think.
Yeah. This is lifetime medicine, really. The Chinese, when we speak of Chinese medicine, there are so many branches of Chinese medicine, and it's probably several lifetimes worth of work to study and learn and put into practice the teachings of the medical tradition.
What would you put into Chinese medicine if you were to define it just, briefly, if that's possible? What would you say?
I think that the core of it really comes down to yin and yang. This concept of the Tai Chi, the Tai Chi Chu, the yin yang symbol you see on my chart back here. This is a very familiar symbol. And this yin and yang symbol actually describes life and life energy in the universe. So where there's a yin, there's a yang. Where there's a yang, there's a yin. One of my first phrases in Chinese medicine that really captured me was the phrase, where there's a front, there's a back. The bigger the front, the bigger the back. And when we look at life through this lens of yin and yang, we see that sickness could be health. Health could be sickness. We wouldn't know health if we didn't know sickness. We wouldn't know sickness if we didn't know health. So
very true.
Chinese medicine is really applying this philosophical understanding of the nature of polarity, the nature of how happiness only shows up in contrast to sadness or struggle. And so if you're feeling struggle or sadness or difficulty in your life, you can say, I wouldn't even know this if I did not know ease.
Yeah.
And the Chinese character for health is made up of two characters. One is upright and the other is at ease. So the Chinese pursuit of health is to be upright at ease. So how can I feel that sense of uprightness and yet not struggle against gravity, but be at ease in relationship with gravity? So, right? So that
takes me to the yoga practice, because I practice yoga, and my teachers always tell me, when you stand in Warrior Two, they say, okay, because it's hard for me, my legs, I feel weak. And they always talk about this. Well, you should be at ease. You should be strong, but at ease.
Yes.
So I'm trying to find that balance, and it's actually what you're talking about, to be at ease.
Yes. And so that would be like a Chinese medicine is actually the application of that in all of life, from a yoga posture to a coffee shop, to driving the car, you know, or wherever your lifestyle may, riding the train. So, yes.
Interesting. So you wrote this book a couple of years ago. It came out in the US.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to write this book?
So I've been teaching shiatsu for 30 years. I found shiatsu when I was in I was 25 years old. My first career was in the theatrical world. I was a theatrical technician. I did stagecraft, working with sets and lighting and design and implementation of stagecraft. And in that theater career, I was all over the United States working from different companies. Different companies would hire me in to do different jobs, show by show. And it was quite scattering, actually. I was quite, I had a passion for the theater and what it could bring, but it was very difficult, hard work for me. And then after rehearsal, we were at a gathering, and there was a gentleman who was in the company, and he would read faces. He was doing the Japanese facial reading, which is a way to read health. And like, I even see the lines coming up on my face now. This is your liver line, and here's your kidney line, and then here's your stomach line all around the lips. You know, so you can read digestion, you can read quality of energy, you can read how the liver's doing. And I was fascinated by that. And that's how I kind of started to discover this world of Asian medicine and this yin-yang perspective. And what attracted me about the shiatsu school was shiatsu is the Japanese art, and the Japanese speak much of hara, your belly, that your strength is in your belly, that your centeredness and your groundedness is in the belly. And what I needed most in my life at that time was to be centered and grounded, because I was quite scattered. The last year of my theatrical profession, I lived in 5 different places, geographically, thousands of miles apart, from Massachusetts to San Diego, to South Carolina, to Cincinnati, to Chicago, which is all over the United States, thousands of miles apart. And in 1 year, to live in 5 different geographical locations like that was just like, where is my center? Where is my ground? And so the art of shiatsu and the practices of shiatsu and this yin-yang teachings started to ground me. And I was able to, at that time, move to Chicago, Illinois, where I worked with the Lyric Opera of Chicago, which was my best theater job ever, I have to say, and my last. You know,
maybe that's...
They offered me a 6-month contract, which is huge in the theater world, to have 6 months of work at one company. That in my world, you know. And so that motivated me to move to Chicago. And during that time, I had discovered the Ohashi Institute in New York City. And so I trained at the Ohashi Institute in New York City on immersion trainings, and then back to Chicago to live and work. So I was back and forth between Chicago and New York City for those 2 years. But even those 2 places gave me a sense of ground. And I opened a shiatsu school in Chicago.
So shiatsu is your way into the Chinese medicine, Meridian System, all that?
Truly. The shiatsu work brought me into the Chinese medicine system through the Japanese application of the art. And so it's a kind of like, Ohashi used to have a phrase, he called it international catch ball. You know, I'm just throwing the ball from one nation to another. And as it goes from one nation to another, it changes. And
it does.
So I'm excited by this launch of Pathways in the Swedish, because in a way, my work now has gone international in a way.
Definitely.
Right? By being translated into another language. And we were having a conversation about that. The title in English, we say Pathways of Qi, and it was translated as
Vägen till Qi, the road to Qi.
The road to Qi. And it's like, oh, the road to Qi. That's a beautiful interpretation of the pathways of Qi, which flow through the body. Now, this has been my study and practice for, 35 years.
Yeah.
I turned
Quite
60.
a lifetime.
Yeah. And so Pathways of Qi actually came from an earlier manuscript that I had drafted called One Meridian Flow.
Oh.
And I still have like 20 copies of One Meridian Flow, but basically it is the Pathways of Qi or Road to Qi document in an earlier manuscript version full of typographical errors. And but Llewellyn, the publisher of Pathways, they got a copy of my manuscript and said, let's turn this into a published work. And so
good idea.
That began our journey to turn manuscript work into finished, published material.
What message is it that you want to send with the Pathways?
Wow, there are so many messages. To distill it down to one, I think for me,
You can have several. That's okay.
Yeah, for me, I think the main point, comes a little bit from my early title, my working title of One Meridian Flow, is this feeling of an energy flow that flows through the body like rivers. And this is one important aspect that is central to the book, its narrative, is how do we travel through this meridian system of the body, these pathways of life energy that animate and activate all of the functions of our body. And I would like to say that just like you think of eyes, nose, ears, and mouth, we could think of stomach meridian and large intestine meridian and small intestine meridian, right? And the bladder meridian, that these channels of energy relate to how our body functions. And by coming into greater knowledge of that, we will know how our body works. And a phrase of Ohashi's was, body work means your body works. That we're doing body work. We're working our body. We're awake. We're alive. What does it take to get out of bed in the morning, and to go about your day with optimal functioning, so that you feel good and be upright at ease?
In the book, you say that you want Chinese medicine and the Meridian system to be available for a larger audience, which resonated well with me because I've always been interested in Chinese medicine, but never really gotten to take it in because it felt a little bit mystic, a little bit exclusive for a small group of traditional Chinese people who actually have this tradition in their family, from generations and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's why this book resonated so well with me, because I feel that it's targeting me and also people that are initiated but maybe not practicing it for 10 or 30 years or so, but even so.
Right. Well, that's kind of the neat thing about what I bring in Pathways. And I've got a chart here. If I may, I'll just move my camera a little bit to get a little closer, because there's an understanding about meridians that says that if you know where the meridian is on the body, you will know what function it serves. And this is actually a classical understanding of meridians. And so I'm going to try to angle my camera here in such a way, for instance, on the heart meridian, right?
Yeah.
And this is our heart meridian, featured right there in the center. And you'll see the points that go from the axilla up to the elbow and out to the pinky finger.
Yeah.
And so this meridian channel of energy in the body. And I'm going to set my camera over here now and do that more on my body rather than on a chart. when I lift my hands up, this is my heart meridian, right? I'm raising my heart. This is a gesture of celebration, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a gesture of opening your heart and receiving. Here comes the sun. You're in Sweden, right? You worship the sun, right? It's like, I'm going to open my heart, right? And so there's another channel that goes out the bicep to the middle finger, and this is also related to protection for the heart. And this is right in this central zone. This would be up, and then this is more central, and then there's yet another meridian that's lower, right? And so when we move our arms in different ways, this is for the lungs. Sorry, cameras drive me. So the lungs, and then this heart protector channel, and then the heart. And you begin to see that there's 3 layers of energy in the body being expressed through the way you move your arms.
It feels so much logic when you listen to someone who actually knows it. But it's quite difficult to understand if you have to study it.
Yeah, and it is mystical at first from the outside, but when you get it up and into your body, you go, oh, I get it. These 3 meridians that I just demonstrated are known as the 3 yin arm meridians. The yin arm meridians are different than the yang arm meridians. Yang would be in the back of the arm,
yeah.
Yin in the front of the arm. So yin and yang is a very fascinating. The early traditional definition is the shady side and the sunny side. Right? So
what is the shady side?
The shady side is the yin side.
Of course.
And the
female side.
The sunny side is the yang side, right? So it's the south side of the mountain is yang, but the north side of the mountain is yin.
Okay.
So when we take this idea of sunny side and shady side to the human body, we would see that the yin side is the dark inside and the yang side is the bright outside. So when I turn a cold shoulder, that's my yang. When I open my heart, I'm opening my yin.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. And so this is the way we enter into understanding the body as an expression of yin and yang. I'm sorry about the lighting here. This is California sun and my meditation corner here.
It looks like yellow and, golden, and here it's gray and rainy outside and actually thunderstorm. So don't be sorry.
Enjoy.
Yes, we are.
To share it with you. Yeah, a little bit of California sun.
Can you give us situation or a particular experience where you have used the Meridian system to feel better? It could be, looking at the book, you actually describe how the Meridian system helps us out physically, emotionally, spiritually. So can you give us some examples from your life?
Yeah. The mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects and the physical aspects of the meridians, that's what it's kind of central to the understanding. First is to say that a meridian is an aspect of full functioning. It's a holistic system. So let's take, for instance, the lungs. Now, when we think of the lungs, these 2 organs in the chest that breathe the air in, right? But when you think about breath comes in, breath goes out. We bring in oxygen, we let go of carbon monoxide. And so it's about exchanging with our environment. So the lungs are an organ in the body that do this transmutation of gases, but the lung meridian is the energy of exchange that we have in our lives. So inflow and outflow could be gain and loss. And then emotionally, that could be sorrow, right? Because when I have a loss, I have a deep sorrow. And that's my lung meridian would govern sorrow. So I do actually a lot of work with grief counseling, helping people through transition, change, loss, and gain, right? And in every gain, there is a loss. And in every loss, there is a gain. And so being able to care for our being as we go through transitions, and just to be honest with the feelings that arise, is an aspect to working with this energy. Now, if we take that to the lung meridian, then we embody it, and we find that the lung begins right here at a point in the pectoralis muscle.
On the left or both sides?
Both sides. And usually it'll be more tender on one side than the other, because life is asymmetrical. You know, as much as we'd like to extol the virtues of symmetry, the truth is that life is asymmetrical, and one side gets more impacted than another, right? One side is stronger, one side is weaker, one side is dominant, the other side is subdominant, you know? And so the lung begins here, though, at this point. And so just rubbing that point can be a personal practice of dropping in to your body, right? And that channel flows down the bicep and down into the forearm and all the way to the crease of the wrist at the thumb, and in the thumb down to the nail of the thumb. And so there's a common symptom that we say when you're grieving, you'll have a pulling sensation in your thumb. And so I rotate my thumb joint every day. I use my thumbs a lot in shiatsu. It's a thumb-based treatment in many respects, pressing on points of the body with the thumb. And I want my thumb to stay supple. And when it's stiff and sore, I know that I'm processing something I need to let go of. And there you can see it right there, right? We grasp with the thumb and forefinger, and we release. We grasp and we release. And that mimics what our lungs are doing with the air. So I'm taking the body points of where this channel flows and relating it back to what's going on in my life.
Yeah. And you can do that. I can do that on myself, and I can get someone like you to help me out by acupuncture, by shiatsu, by Qigong, etc.
Yes, and the Qigong is actually, for me, that's my daily practice and application of this work. I teach what I call a meridian gesture Qigong, which is taking each of these meridians and exercising them. So I'll demo a little bit of that. And I also have an online course where I teach this material. So it's in the Pathways book. It's in the Road to Qi, where we study and I teach this whole system. But for instance, the lung gesture is just simply this: inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. That's a gesture that exercises the meridian channel, right? And awakens and activates it. And there's a gesture for all 12 of these regular pathways. There are 12 meridians that are in the regular system. They're the standard system of the body. And so we do gestures for each of those 12 pathways as a daily practice.
And all this is in the book with the Meridian System, Qigong gesture. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole section, the last a third of the book, I believe, is based in Meridian Qigong. It's teaching the Meridian gesture system. And you have to read the book, I guess.
Yes, you do. But there is nothing about shiatsu really in the book. It's about, the book is focused on well, it's better that you describe the book.
Yeah, it's more the theory underlying the work of shiatsu. So I have other manuscripts that I've built and written. One was my Touching Ki manual, which is a beginner's guide to shiatsu. And so maybe this is shiatsu in action, right? So this is the gallbladder channel. And so the shiatsu also uses the same channel system, and the therapist knows the body with this map, the map of the meridian system, and how these lines express all over the body, right? And the pathways is about the map. And then the personal practice that you can do, where you might tap the meridians, tapping on the points. There's a whole section in the book on tapping through the meridian system. So you tap every point on the meridian, and that wakes up your energy. And so tapping of the meridian channels is kind of what I do with touch in the Pathways book.
Yeah.
Because the Pathways was meant to be something that could be a self-guided practice, something you can do on your own. Whereas shiatsu is something you have to do with a partner.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
I told you before that I had a shiatsu session in November and I loved it. So I'm very gently tapping into the meridian system, the world of the meridians.
that's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
I love it.
Take a gentle step in. Yeah, that's good. I have
Exactly.
2 workshops that I do. One that I call Pathways of Qi, which is a 12-hour workshop, which is a live workshop where we interact and learn these 12 pathways together and learn the gestures and how to move the body and get a full, complete feeling of it in a brief 12-hour workshop. And then I have
physically on site, or
that's an on-site live workshop.
Yeah.
Yes. And I actually do have that also online in a digital format. If anybody was curious about watching a recording of it and following along, it's possible to do Pathways in that way. And
Nice.
then I have a 15-hour workshop that I call Matwork Mastery. And in our Matwork course, you learn how to do the shiatsu basics in just a 15-hour weekend. It introduces you to the style. And if you like it, then I have a full 500-hour training. And that's a vocational level training.
So most of your life goes into training.
Yes, I teach and I see clients in a private practice, and I actually, one of my favorite classes, I do the Qigong with a senior citizen home. And 3 times a week, I go to the senior citizen home and we go to their fitness center, and anywhere from 10 to 20 elders come and we do the practice together. And these ladies and men are 85 to 95 years old. And it's really heartwarming to be with them and to move our bodies and breathe together and enjoy the practice.
Lovely. Where is home for you today?
So I live in Nevada City, California.
Yeah.
And California, this is the gold rush territory. Remember the old California gold rush? Well, this is the area where the Westerners and international folks of all types swarmed these hills to find gold. And long since now, the gold rush days have ended, but it's still called the gold country here. And so mountains, the Sierra foothills, I'm 1 hour from Lake Tahoe. The Olympic Village at Squaw Valley is 50 minutes down the highway from me. So I live in the countryside here in Northern California.
How far is it from the ocean?
I'm about 3 hours from the ocean.
Yeah.
So 3 hours
Nice.
to the ocean, 1 hour to the high mountains. I have 2 young sons now who are actually college boys. So I have 2 boys launching off to college. And
Wow. Are they twins or just close?
Year and a half apart.
Oh. Good job.
2 years and 3 months apart, actually. Yeah. My oldest is turning 23, and my youngest will be turning 21 in the winter. So
Nice.
23 and 21, college boys. And so my move to California happened in 2000. And I was living in Chicago prior. I had 15 years, I lived in Chicago and ran my shiatsu school there. And then I moved to California when my boys were just 1 year old and 3 years old. And so we settled here and raised them up in rural Northern California. And now they're off to college and enjoying their flight into the world. So I'm turning 60, and so I get to be oldest now. I get to be elder. And I even have gray in my beard. So that's part of my journey at 60 is to deal with this transition of coming into elder years. And
that's nice. It's nice that you actually embrace growing in all the ways that you can grow.
Yeah. Well, you're probably familiar with the puer. The word puer is, I think it's a Latin word, and there's a concept called puer aeternus, eternal child.
Okay.
It's also been called the Peter Pan syndrome.
Oh.
You know, I don't want to grow up. I'll never grow up. I'm going to stay youthful forever. And I think that's a little trap in that we get caught in that. And I have certainly been one to enjoy the virtues of youthfulness. And I like seeing it when I go teach at the elder group, you know, when I see the 93-year-old who's still laughing and cracking jokes, even when he's kind of up from the chair, that you can still do that in a humorous way and still be youthful about it. Or
definitely.
My 77-year-old client, he says, when I'm just sitting still in my chair, I feel like I'm 37. It's when I stand up that I remember I'm 77, you know? Yeah. So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I love growing in all the ways that I can. And I never really understood how, you know, in Sweden we talk about age crisis. I never really understood those, but maybe it's because I didn't hit that high yet. I'm not sure. But I'm 45 now, and I like becoming more mature rather than old.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we go through these transitions in life, right? And each transition should be met with a kind of a healthy initiation into this new level.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes those initiations aren't really done so well. And then we have to go back and do some repair.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I like about the Chinese medical system too. We call it the cycles of aging and development, cycles of 7 and 8. And like there's 7 and 8 year cycles that we go through.
Yeah.
Right? And so each age we're kind of shifting through, transitioning to a new age. And then there's a whole new set of opportunities available to us at that age that weren't there earlier. And much of my practice will often revolve around supporting people through those initiatory transitions in life. And
so is it the transitions are between the 7, 8, and then into the new cycle kind of thing? Yeah.
Yes. So a cycle lasts between 7 and 8 years. Sometimes it could be 10-year cycle.
Yeah.
It could be a longer cycle, but there's a period of growth. We often see it in sevens. I do, because when I was 7 years old, I went into elementary school. When I was 14 years old, I was a teenager. When I was 21 years old, now I'm an adult.
Top of the world.
Yeah, right. When I'm 28, I'm going through big change there, you know, where I have to kind of start walking my talk. You know, I like to say there's before you're 30 years old, nobody listened to you anyway. And so you could say whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
Right. But then after you're 30, people start listening to you. And then you have to watch what you say. It has to line up with your actions. So these are different initiatory experiences. And I watch it with my boys now going in their 21, 23 years. You know, it's like, wow, they're really coming into hitting the challenges of being a young adult. How do you prepare your own meals?
Yeah.
How do you do your own grocery shopping? That's their job right now.
Yeah, and handle the money.
And
have money all through until next payout.
Yeah. Now, one thing interesting too about Qigong as a practice, I'll never forget one of my colleagues. He was actually a high bar gymnast, you know, swinging around that bar and sticking his landings. And he did that until he was 20. And after 20, he had aged out of high bar.
Oh.
Because that's a young person's sport.
Yeah.
He then became a modern dancer. And modern dance is very gymnastic, right? Lifting people up, throwing people around, being thrown around, landing, you know. And he practiced modern dance until he was 28. And then he aged out of modern dance. And he found power yoga, Ashtanga yoga, warrior two, strong yoga. And he did that till he was 35. And then he found Qigong and shiatsu. And he said, I can do this until I'm 90.
Yeah.
And
True.
so one of the things that's beautiful about the Qigong art is it's a living, lifelong art and really focuses on the internal growth.
Yeah.
Not just the external.
And the health, right?
Right. It's health-based. Martial arts are very often based in, you know, the fighting postures and stances. And Qigong is more the healing postures and the healing action. And the martial arts will use the healing arts because if you practice martial arts, you get injured. That's the point. And
exactly.
You injure others. And then after injury, you need to repair. And this is where the Tai Chi and Qigong come in to help us heal and repair. And
hold on 1 second, Matthew. I actually got my daughter here. So I just want to say hi to her. And I'm in a meeting. Let's talk later.
Hello,
she
daughter.
just came home from dance. So they are still on a summer vacation. So she is on a camp this week, a day camp, dancing 5 hours a day. She loves it.
Oh, that's awesome. How old is she?
13.
13. Yeah. Just on
beautiful teens.
That beautiful.
Yeah. Closing in on her second cycle.
Second cycle. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Coming into that maturity in her in her young body, maturing, going through her menstrual initiation, right?
Everything like that.
Yeah. And dancing. That's beautiful. The Qigong is such a nice companion to the dance. I was actually blessed many years ago with 2 opportunities to teach in high schools here in the United States. And in one school, I went to work with the physical education class at a public high school. And in the other, I went to the performing arts high school and did a class with the dancers, the young dancers. And the young dancers were so respectful and so open and so kind to one another and caring. And at this public high school in the physical education class, they were so rude and so boisterous and so mean. There were actually 2 boys got into a wrestling match, and the coach had to come and send them to the principal's office in the middle of my class. And so it was such beautiful to see the contrast. So I really honor and respect the arts as a place where our young people can mature in a kind and generous way with one another.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Certainly.
For your
So
daughter.
Matthew, we are closing in on our interview, and I just wanted to hear 2 things. First of all, could you we talked about this. What is the 3 main features of the book that will help people on their wellness journey?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is becoming familiar with this meridian system, that there are 12 channels of energy that flow through our body, and they have mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects as well as physical aspects. And so becoming familiar with that system is essential. Another aspect goes a little broader out into what we call the 5 elements. And so in the Chinese system of the elemental understanding, we have fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And these energies of the elemental qualities I explore in the book to introduce this kind of broader concept. So earlier we talked about the heart, and that's a fire energy. It's the fire element. And we talked a little bit about the lung energy, and that's the metal element. And metal interconnects us to the world, and fire inspires us and warms us and lights the way. And so I think that's another part of the book that's really just an introduction to this idea of looking at life through this lens of 5 elements.
Yeah.
When do I need to be more fiery? When would it be helpful to be more like water? When would it be more helpful to be like metal and have boundaries? Or more like wood and stand my ground?
Yeah.
So that's the second feature of the book. And then I explore personality in the book from that basis. It's like, when is my own personality going to thrive? Because I understand that I'm more fiery in nature, but maybe that fiery nature doesn't serve me in this instance, and I need to bring forth a little bit more of my watery characteristics to help balance the situation. So I begin to explore personality. And then finally, it's the Qigong practice, which is really learning the gesture sequence. And that is
to put it into practice.
Put it into practice. I do this in the book. It describes the full flow of a Qigong practice that you can do. And I also guide these practices online. One thing nice about the Qigong practice, I can do it by video to teach the practice.
Could we get access to that? Is it like a Zoom meeting?
Yeah.
Or?
I do a Zoom meeting online, and I actually have a 3 days a week. It's about 40 minutes each class, and I teach the Meridian System. The best way to kind of have access to that is to join my mailing list, which is at heartmindbodywork.com.
Heartmindbodywork.com.
All spelled.
I'll write it down. Yeah.
Right.
What does heart mind mean to you? Because it's a central term.
Thank you. Yes.
For you.
Yeah, and you'll see even on my chart, it's the heart mind shiatsu. Right? It's backwards.
Yeah.
On my screen.
Well, yeah.
But heart mind is, well, I'll take a minute to go into this.
Yeah.
We're getting close to our time, but I like looking at life and medicine and the world in 3s. right? So there's a beginning, a middle, and end, an oldest, a middle, and a youngest. There's a external moving toward internal and then getting deep into the internal, right? Heart mind is in the middle. So we could think of this as body, mind, and spirit, right?
Yep.
Those three parts. Heart mind, again, in the middle. Mind is heart. Now, the word heart mind comes from Chinese. If you spell it in the pinyin, it's spelled Xin, Xin. And Xin is the word for heart, but it's also the word for mind. And there's actually no separate word for mind and a separate word for heart. It's Xin. And so the best translation is heart mind. And yes.
Yeah, I want you to finish before I interrupt.
Yeah. So heart mind is the combination of kind of mental, emotional thoughts and feelings, right? And it's in this middle zone where it's physical, but it's also spiritual, right? The heart is a physical organ. It beats and pumps blood. And yet it's got this electromagnetic field that's 10 times bigger than the brain. And it connects us to the world around us in a spiritual way, something you couldn't put under a microscope, right? It's thoughts, it's
Definitely.
feelings. So that's a kind of a snapshot of heart mind, and it becomes central to my work as the practice of kind of harmonizing heart and mind. Because we know heart and mind are one, but so often in life they're at odds.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to point out, because when talking about heart mind being one, normally in real life, that's kind of what tears us apart. That my heart is feeling something, but my mind is saying me something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to, well, a good deal of my own personal development has been, okay, get a little bit less here and more into the heart,
Uh-huh.
and kind of combining these two. And when feeling this, you actually think that
Mm-hmm.
your heart is more, how do you say, I think it's taking over the mind if you let it, which
Mm-hmm.
is where you want to come,
Yeah.
at least for me personally.
Right. There's one of my favorite Native American stories was illustrated the heart and the mind. And basically the moral of the story ends with, when you want to know what to do, follow your heart. When you want to know how to do it, use your mind.
Yeah.
So there's,
Oh yeah.
right? When I want to know how to do something, this mind is a really important tool. It helps me figure out the steps to get something done, but it won't help me know what to do.
No.
But my heart knows what to do because my heart feels. When I want to read a book, I want to read a book. But if I need to do the laundry, I probably have to, or cook dinner or clean up. So the
You have to
mind
think.
will tell us when and how, but the heart tells us what. And it's the communication between heart and mind that lead to a balanced life. And you're absolutely, right on it, that they're often battling one another.
Yeah. So you've given us so many, how do you say, tips for how to integrate the Meridian system, the Chinese medicine theory, into our own lives and actually change our lives a bit. But do you have like an easy starter tips for those who are interested but maybe doesn't know so much yet, and how they just want to get in the favor of their health?
To me, that probably the starting place is the breath. We actually speak of 3 conscious awarenesses that are essential: the posture, the breath, and the mind. And the breath is, again, central to those, right? So I want to be aware of my posture and then turn my attention to my breath. And we have practices, there are many, many breath practices, but the kind of starter breath practice in my world is called turtle's breath, where you simply slow your breath down so that the exhale and the inhale become long, slow, and deep. So it's a long, slow inhale followed by a long, slow exhale. And just taking 10 slow, deep breaths will change the energy in your body. And as you do that, you'll notice that your mind calms down. Your heartbeat becomes steady. You get some perspective. Right? So posture, breath, and mind are the 3 main awarenesses to pay attention to. The mind,
that's a good start.
Yeah, the mind is interesting one, and this is a beautiful metaphor or image that I like to work with, is that the mind is like the sky, and the thoughts and feelings you have are like the clouds. Mm-hmm. So the clouds will float through the sky, but the sky does not cling to the clouds. Even though it's a cloudy day in Stockholm today with rain and thunder and lightning, those clouds are moving through the sky. So the mind doesn't have to cling to your thoughts and feelings. Your thoughts and feelings can just float through your mind like clouds through the sky.
Yeah, that's a good, how to say, analogy.
Mm-hmm. And so
nice.
Breath, posture, and mind. And read my book and take my online course. Become a subscriber if you're intrigued by this. I've been teaching for 30 years, and I love to share this information and method this way. It's an experience, really.
And I could take a one-time Qigong Zoom class if I wanted to try it out, right?
Yes, I actually have an online registration button right now. It's a little bit complicated. Let me just shift my screen a minute and see. It's an online scheduler that I use.
Yeah.
And scheduling page link. I'm looking for the link. It's, like I say, it's a complicated link, but it's called Heart Mind Session Scheduling. And
we will find it at heartmindbodywork.com.
I have to get this integrated to my website. One of the things about this digital world is I actually have a virtual assistant I need to start working with who's going to help me integrate all these systems. But
that's a good idea.
So it'll be easier for people. I've put in the chat window here. Yeah. I don't know if this will come through in the recording, but heartmindsessionscheduling.as.me. And that is my online scheduler where people can register for an online Qigong class.
Wonderful. We'll make it visible for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Matthew, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to meet. We tried to reach each other for a couple of weeks now. Yes. And once we did find each other, it all went like this, right?
Yeah. That was
very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. And you have just
Alexandra.
started your day.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
about to actually do my Zoom class in 25 minutes. So
Wonderful. We'll let you go.
thank
And
you.
super thank you. And we'll keep in touch with an update on the book,
I'm
etc.
looking forward to seeing it in Swedish and
Me too.
announcing.
It's in the printer's house.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So thank you to all your book club members, and so happy to meet all of you and say hello. Send me an email, get on my mailing list. I'd be happy to connect further. And so wonderful to meet you, Alexandra.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew.